Hi, this is Stephanie Lotvin of Tellybean Knits, and today we are going to work on row 1, the setup row for day 22, section 22 of the grand opening shawl. If you are working from the Suburban Stitcher Advent Calendar and you have not yet opened days 1 through 22 of your Advent Calendar yarn, then push pause on this video now. Come back once you have opened those yarns and join me for the setup row. Okay, let me show you where we are in our shawl. So I have here the grand opening shawl. I have completed days 1 through 21. This is the day 21, section 21 that I just finished. It has been bound off and I've grafted the last 4 stitches of that corner of the shawl, and I am ready to start the setup row for day 22, section 22. In this setup row, we will be placing the held stitches that we currently have on hold on the right hand of our shawl back on our needles, and we will be picking up 26 stitches along the edges of the last 4 sections. So let's get started. Let me bring you in a little closer. We're going to begin by placing our held stitches back on the needles. We're going to start at the corner of our shawl for putting our stitches back on the needles, just because the stitches that are close to the center of the shawl have been pulled a little bit tight, and so it'll be easier to start at this end of our shawl for placing those stitches back on the needles. We are going to slip the first 3 stitches back on the needles, and then we have come to our first stitch marker, our removable stitch marker, and I'm going to leave that removable stitch marker on the scrap yarn because I plan to leave this scrap yarn in place as a lifeline. I've put a stitch marker in place where that removable marker would be so that I know where my markers need to be in my knitting, and I will just continue to place all of those stitches back on my needles. I am going to slip all of those stitches back onto my needles purlwise without changing the orientation or twisting the stitches in any way until I have all of my held stitches back on my needles. Okay, I have placed all of my held stitches back on my needles. I have the right side of my work facing me, and I am ready to work a right side row. So I'm going to bring my stitches to the end of my needle with the right side of my work facing me, and I'm going to begin working the setup row. I have here the tail of my last section. I'm just going to slip this first stitch purlwise with the yarn in front and then bring that tail to the back of my work. Now I'm going to grab color 22 and I'm going to join that color by knitting a stitch, 1, and then knit 2. And now I am at my stitch marker. I'll slip that stitch marker, I'll work a yarn over, and I will just knit to the end of those stitches. I will knit all of the stitches that I currently have on my needles. Okay, we are ready to pick up the stitches along the slipped stitch edge of sections 21, 20, 19, and 18. When we worked those slip stitches, they created little V's. You can see little V's all stacked on top of each other along that edge. You can see one little V on the right side of your work, and if you turn your work, you can see another little V on the wrong side of your work. We'll be picking up stitches from those little V's on the wrong side of our work just by turning that top edge towards us, the same way we did when we previously picked up stitches. Before we start picking up stitches from those little V's, we are going to look for the central stitch that has been running down our shawl, where we had been working an increase in M1R and an M1L on either side of that central stitch, and we are going to pick up one stitch into the top central stitch. You can see right here on our shawl, we're going to pick up one stitch into that central stitch. I'll lay that out so you can see it. We've just picked up right into the center of that central stitch one stitch, and now we're going to begin picking up stitches from the little V's that are created along that slip stitch edge. You can, if you're having any trouble finding the very first slip stitch that you worked on the wrong side of your work, that little V, this is the tail from where I connected my yarn for section 18. If you give that just a gentle tug, you can see that the little V, it changes the tension, and that is where we want to insert our needle, is under the two legs of that little V, and we can pick up our next stitch into that little V, and then we'll turn our work back towards the wrong side of our work and look for the next little V and insert our needle under the two legs of that next little V and pick up and knit that stitch, and we'll just continue down those little V's on the edge of section 18, 19, and 20, always being careful to catch both legs of those slip stitches. You may find that some of those little V's, if you have not woven in your ends, are a little stretched out just from the pull that's been happening when you've worked your sections, and you can just give those strands, those ends, a little gentle tug to pull those back into shape so that it's a little easier to pick those stitches up. Just continue to work down the edge of your knitting. We will go back and check to make sure that those stitches have all been picked up. This is what my edge looks like now that I have picked up my stitches. We'll check the stitch count. I have here my central stitch. That was the first picked up stitch. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 27 stitches picked up along that edge. I'll bring this back up so I can show you what the setup looks like. So we have here the setup row of section 22, row 1, the setup row is now complete. I'm ready to turn my work to a wrong side row and work row 2. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it.